Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Today we'll discuss things related to Animagi. The topic is not always straightforward, so I propose we take a look at a few controversial points. Enjoy the video. Number 1. Why are there so few registered Animagi in the magical world? One of the questions that arises in the context of Animagi is why, with such an advanced form of magic, so few wizards have mastered the art of transforming into animals. It's truly strange. Yes, you can't choose the animal, but in theory, any creature could be advantageous. For example, Peter Pettigrew wouldn't have been able to escape if he weren't a rat, and he probably wouldn't have been able to live with the Weasley family for 12 years in the form of any other animal. This raises the question of why there aren't more Animagi who would use such advantages. Why haven't powerful wizards tried to, but quote, do a useful form? Number 2, how did the Marauders become Animagia despite such complexity? The process of becoming an animagus is undoubtedly complex, and if we compare it to brewing the polyjuice potion, the latter seems like child's play. Here are just some of the steps. The first step is holding a mandrake leaf in your mouth for an entire month, from full moon to full moon. The leaf must not be swallowed or even removed once. If you remove it from your mouth, you have to start the process over. This is only the first step. The smallest mistake could lead to serious consequences. The Marauders, including such active guys as James and Sirius, were able to go through this process and master the magic of Animagi. But how did they manage to do what many experienced wizards cannot? Number 3. Are Animagi aware of the risks of not being able to choose their animal form? In the wizarding world, there are types of magic that prevent wizards from choosing forms. For example, the Patronus. It is unique to each person, and it cannot simply be changed, as it requires experiencing a significant loss or emotional trauma, as seen with Lily Potter. The same goes for Animagi. A wizard who wants to become an animagus must understand that their animal form will be random. And this isn't always a good thing. For example, the Marauders, who decided to become Animagi, risked choosing a completely impractical form. Imagine if Rita Skeeter hadn't turned into a beetle, but say, an elephant. She would have had much fewer opportunities to use her form for gathering gossip. Number 4. Why don't Dementors sense Animagi? This question is interesting because in the film version of The Prisoner of Azkaban, the moment with the Dementors is overlooked. However, in the book, there are details of Sirius's escape where it is mentioned that, being an unregistered animagus, he tricked the Dementors, who can only sense human souls. This creates a strange moment. Animagi, although they transform into animals, still retain their human essence. Therefore, Dementors, in theory, should have been able to sense Sirius, even if he was in the form of a dog. So why didn't this happen? Number 5. What happens to the clothing? The film version of The Prisoner of Azkaban raises an interesting question. When Peter Pettigrew transforms into a rat, his clothes remain in place. But when he is transformed back into a human, his clothes are still on him. So what happens to an animagus's clothing? Does it transform along with the body, or does the animagus need to remove it to avoid damage? Why doesn't the clothing transform with them? Does the transformation not affect it? This remains a mystery, as there is no definitive answer to this question. Number 6. How does an animagus's consciousness work in animal form? One of the most intriguing questions about Animagi is how their consciousness works once they transform. We know that Sirius, in the form of Padfoot, could think, make decisions, and even act strategically. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, he exhibits a remarkable ability to retain his human traits, from his understanding of complex situations to his ability to communicate with Harry and the others. But this raises a deeper question. How fully does his human mind operate when he's in the form of a dog? Does he truly retain his ability to reason and analyze, or is his thought process clouded by animal instincts? The more time Sirius spends as Padfoot, the more his human mind could potentially slip away. While he can act with purpose and intelligence, there's always the risk that the longer he remains in his animal form, the more he might lose touch with his true self. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, when Sirius is in his dog form, he often seems distant, as though the lines between man and animal are beginning to blur. Could this be a sign that the longer an animagus stays in their animal form, the more they risk losing their humanity? The answer is unclear, but it's a disturbing possibility that suggests the deeper you go into animal transformation, the more your human mind might start to fade. Number 7, can magic be used while in animal form? We've never seen an animagus cast magic while in animal form. At first glance, it seems like their magical abilities would remain with them, but their wand is not. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, we learn that transforming into an animal doesn't strip an animagus of their magical essence. But the absence of a wand raises a significant question. If magic is truly tied to the wizard, as will, why can an animagus perform spells in their animal form? After all, we've seen powerful wizards like Dumbledore cast magic without a wand, so why wouldn't an animagus be able to do the same? Could it be that the magical channel is somehow blocked or distorted by the transformation? Or perhaps the Ministry of Magic, always cautious about magic's potential dangers, has chosen not to reveal that an animagus could cast spells in animal form. The possibility of an animagus wielding magic in their animal shape is unsettling. It's a power that would make them an even greater threat. An animagus who can cast spells while transformed is not just a wizard in disguise. There is something far more dangerous. Number 8. What happens if an animagus dies while transformed? What happens if an animagus dies in animal form? It's a dark thought, but a necessary one. Imagine a wizard who has transformed into a rat, a cat, or any other creature dying in their animal body. Does the body remain in that form, or does it revert to its human shape? The Harry Potter series doesn't give a definitive answer, but it is a chilling possibility to consider. In the case of Peter Pettigrew, for example, would he have been recognized as the missing wizard if he had died as a rat? Or would his death simply be the end of a small, unnoticed creature, leaving no trace of the man he had been? Imagine the consequences. A cat dies in an alley, and no one realizes it was a lost Hogwarts professor, or worse, a powerful wizard in hiding. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Sirius Black's ability to escape undetected as a dog shows just how easy it would be for a wizard to vanish without a trace. If an animagus were to die in their animal form, would their body remain unclaimed, lost to time, with no one ever realizing who they truly were? It's a terrifying thought that someone could disappear completely, leaving behind no evidence of their human existence. This ability to disappear without a trace might seem like an advantage for an animagus, but it also opens the door to fear. What if a dark wizard used this to their advantage, dying as an animal to avoid detection? Could they escape justice by simply vanishing into the world as a creature, their human identity forever unknown? It's a terrifying possibility in the wizarding world, one that leaves us with more questions than answers. The idea of living and dying without ever revealing who you truly were is as chilling as it is fascinating. Number 9, can Animagi lose their human personality? Could Animagi lose their human identity? Some wizards might be tempted to stay in their animal form for too long. It's practical. They can hide, escape, or observe unnoticed. But is there a danger of losing themselves in the process? Take Sirius Black, for example. When he becomes a dog, he is able to hide from the world and move freely. But in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, we see that this comes with its own risks. The longer he remains in his animagus form, the harder it becomes for him to connect with his human side. "I am a dog, Padfoot, not a man," he jokes at times, but there's an underlying truth. Could the line between man and animal blur to the point where he no longer remembers who he was? The real danger lies in the loss of control. If an animagus were to stay in their animal form for too long, could their instincts begin to overpower their human consciousness? Could they forget their true identity? This is a frightening possibility. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, we learn that being an animagus is not just a transformation of the body, but of the mind as well. The more an animagus remains in their animal form, the more they risk losing their human thoughts, their reason, and their self-awareness. It's especially dangerous for those who are unprepared or who disregard the careful balance between human and animal. Psychological consequences of animagus transformation have not been fully explored in the wizarding world, but the risks are clear. The magic is so powerful, so overwhelming, that it could easily tip the scales, especially for those who neglect the rules. If the human mind fades away, lost in the instincts of the animal, can the wizard ever return? Can they find their way back to their humanity, or would they remain forever trapped in the form they chose? It's a question that the wizarding world has yet to fully answer, but the potential dangers are undeniable. Number 10. How ethical is it to use animagus powers for spying? The ethical use of animagus transformation for spying is a grey area in the magical world. From a legal standpoint, turning into an animal to infiltrate someone as private property is no different from traditional espionage. However, in the world of magic, the lines of ethics are often blurry. Rita Skeeter is a prime example of this. She used her animagus form as a beetle to sneak into private conversations and gather gossip for her articles, violating personal boundaries with ease. In Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, Harry catches her in the act. Rita Skeeter was a secret animagus, a beetle. She wasn't just reporting news, she was eavesdropping on private lives for her own gain. But Rita is far from the only one who could misuse this ability. Who else could exploit this power for surveillance or subterfuge? The idea of turning into an animal to spy on someone's private moments is too tempting for some. It's a form of invasion that could be easily masked by the innocuous appearance of an animal. In Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, we learn that not all animagi are registered. This opens the door to potential abuse, where dark wizards or unscrupulous individuals could use their abilities for less than noble purposes. The Ministry may have some laws in place, but how effective are they in stopping someone from transforming and using their animal form for clandestine purposes. The Ministry of Magic's control over Animagi seems practically non-existent. Rita Skeeter is a prime example of how unregulated this form of magic can be. She faced little to no consequences for her actions other than a brief warning from Harry. The ministry, which is supposed to oversee magical practices, appears largely indifferent to the potential misuse of animagus transformation. As long as no one reports an animagus, there seems to be little oversight or enforcement. In a world where powerful magic exists, this lack of regulation is a dangerous flaw. Animagi could be using their transformations to invade the privacy of anyone, from ordinary citizens to high-ranking officials, without fear of detection or punishment. At the heart of this issue lies the fact that animagus transformation is one of the most underappreciated and dangerous loopholes in the magical world. It's a form of magic that blends seamlessly into the everyday environment, allowing wizards to hide in plain sight while performing acts of espionage. The lack of strict regulation surrounding Animagi is a serious concern. While it is a remarkable magical feat to become an animagus, it also presents a significant risk of abuse. With no clear legal framework governing its use, Animagia remains a powerful and dangerous tool, one that could be exploited for personal gain or political manipulation without any real oversight. Number 11. Can someone be both an animagus and a werewolf? One of the most intriguing and debated questions is whether a werewolf can be both an animagus and a lycanthrope. On the surface there's nothing that should stop a werewolf from undergoing the difficult process of becoming an animagus. The training is long and complex, involving mandrake leaves, rituals, and intense magical focus. But what happens when a werewolf, already bound by the curse of transformation, decides to take on another animal form by choice? Imagine this scenario. Remus Lupin, a werewolf, decides to learn how to become an animagus. He goes through the entire process, learns to change into a harmless form, perhaps a rat or a bird. But when the full moon rises, the curse begins to take over. In that moment, could he still maintain control of his animal form, or would the instincts of the wolf overwhelm him? In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Lupin says transformations are described as uncontrollable and dangerous. If he were to attempt a transformation into an animagus form during the full moon, would the wolf inside him tear through, turning him into something far more violent than an animal? Would it even be possible for Lupin to become both a wolf and a tiger at once? The very idea raises more questions than answers. Could these two magical transformations coexist, or would they cancel each other out? In The Prisoner of Azkaban, we see the devastating consequences of a single transformation. The thought of a werewolf, with all its terrifying strength and hunger, being able to shift into another animal form sounds like an unpredictable, dangerous mix. Would the wolf's curse override the animagus magic, or would the two magics fuse into something even worse? It's not just a question of magic, but of control. Werewolves are not just cursed by their transformation, they are driven by instincts that even a wizard like Lupin struggles to control. In Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Lupin reveals the deep suffering he experiences because of his condition. If he tried to become an animagus while in the throes of the curse, would he still be able to think clearly? Could his inner werewolf dominate the animal form he so carefully learned to control? The dangers of combining two forms of transformation, one magical, the other cursed, remain a mystery. But one thing is clear: it would be a dangerous experiment with consequences no one could predict. Number 12. Do potions affect animagi in their animal form? Imagine a scenario: an animagus in their animal form drinks a potion. What would happen? Say it's a polyjuice potion or a calming draught, or even a healing tonic. Would the potion still work, or would the animal's magical structure block its effects? The question arises: can a cat or a rat drink and benefit from a potion designed for humans? We know that animagi retain their human minds and magical essence even when transformed, but do their bodies react the same way? We can look to Sirius Black, who often transformed into a dog. He could still speak, understand, and think like a human. But would he have been able to benefit from a potion, say, if he had accidentally consumed one while in his canine form? Now let's imagine a more dangerous situation. What if someone poisoned a bowl of milk, and the one drinking it was actually Rita Skeeter in the form of a beetle? In The Goblet of Fire, Rita reveals that she can transform at will, becoming a bug to spy and eavesdrop. But if she were to drink a deadly potion in her beetle form, would the poison affect her as a human would be affected? Would the potion bypass her animal form and harm her, or would it be rendered ineffective by her transformation? It's a chilling thought, one of those what-ifs that would make even the bravest wizard hesitate. In a similar vein, imagine someone attempting to harm an animagus in their animal form with a potion designed to cause immense pain or even death. Could an animagus drink a deadly poison and survive? Or would the magic of the animal form prevent the toxin from working? In The Prisoner of Azkaban, we learn that Sirius Black, even as a dog, could experience pain, yet could he have been poisoned while in that form without it affecting his human side? The magical complexity of animagi suggests that the answer isn't clear-cut, and that the effects of potions on them might vary, depending on the potion and the animal. The idea of an animagus in danger from a potion, especially a fatal one, raises the question of whether the effects of magic are truly suspended or altered in the animal form. If the potion works, the consequences for the animagus could be dire, but if it doesn't, how much of the magic of the human form remains? It's one of those unanswered questions that leaves us to wonder: is the animal form just a disguise, or does it truly protect the wizard inside? Number 13. Is it possible to transform into magical creatures? In the world of magic, few abilities are as fascinating and as complex as that of an animagus. A wizard or witch capable of transforming into an animal at will, the transformation is a rare and difficult skill that only the most skilled can master. Traditionally, animagi, those who have mastered this transformation, turn into common animals like cats, dogs, rats, or even beetles. It's a form of magic that requires precision, discipline, and years of practice. However, there is an intriguing and often overlooked question about the limits of animagus transformation. What if a wizard or witch could turn into something far more powerful and fantastical? Could an animagus ever become a magical creature, such as a hippogriff or a phoenix? The question of whether such transformations are possible is not without merit. After all, we know that the magical world is filled with extraordinary creatures, many of which have unique and magical properties. Consider the Patronus, a powerful magical charm that protects the caster from dementors. Patronuses are known to take the form of various animals, but in some cases they transcend ordinary creatures and take on the shape of magical beings. Harry Potter, his own Patronus, is a stag, a noble and powerful creature, but it's also worth noting that some witches and wizards, like Severus Snape, have patronuses that are capable of taking a form that reflects their deepest emotional connection. And in the case of Snape, his is a doe, which is an incredibly rare and powerful form for a patronus. If a wizard can cast a patronus that takes the shape of a magical creature, could the same be true for an animagus? Could a wizard, through sheer magical strength and skill, become a creature as majestic as a hippogriff, a phoenix, or even a dragon? The idea seems to sit on the edge of possibility within the magical world, yet it raises numerous questions. For one, would such a transformation be legal under the laws of the Ministry of Magic? After all, we know that animagus transformations are highly regulated. The Ministry has strict rules on the practice of becoming an animagus, and only a handful of wizards and witches throughout history have successfully achieved the transformation. If it were possible to become a magical creature, it would certainly attract the attention of the Ministry, and not necessarily in a good way. The Ministry of Magic is a bureaucratic institution that values control and oversight, especially when it comes to powerful magic. Any magic that could potentially pose a threat to the established order is carefully watched and, if necessary, stamped out. A wizard who could transform into a phoenix, for example, would be a powerful asset in battle, capable of rebirth and renewal, making them nearly invincible. Such a power would undoubtedly be seen as a threat by the Ministry, as it would give the individual possessing it an enormous advantage. The question then becomes, would a magical creature, animagus, be allowed to exist freely, or would they be forced into hiding, just as many dark wizards and witches have done throughout history? Perhaps the most famous and well-documented animagus in the Harry Potter series is Sirius Black. He, along with his friends James Potter, Peter Pettigrew, and Remus Lupin, was part of the Marauders, a group of talented students at Hogwarts. Sirius, James, and Peter all became Animagi in order to accompany their friend Lupin, who was a werewolf. They transformed into an unregistered animagus, a feat that was dangerous and illegal. Their transformation allowed them to enter the Forbidden Forest and be with Lupin when he transformed into a werewolf. Sirius, in particular, turned into a large black dog, an animal whose appearance mirrored his rebellious, free-spirited nature. Sirius's transformation was a difficult one, requiring years of training and focus, yet he was able to master it. It was not a magical creature, but a regular animal, a dog, yet still it was a sign of his impressive magical skill. However, the illegal nature of their transformations is a key element of their story. If the Ministry of Magic found out that they had become unregistered animagi, they could have faced severe punishment. This shows that even when the transformation is into a regular animal, there are rules and regulations governing it. If a wizard or witch were to attempt a more powerful, magical creature transformation, it is reasonable to assume that the consequences would be far more severe. The idea of magical creatures being the subject of animagus transformations leads to another issue: safety. Magical creatures are, by their very nature, often dangerous. A hippogriff, for example, while majestic and noble, is not an animal to be taken lightly. They are territorial and fiercely protective of their space, and a wizard transforming into one might find themselves in a position of constant conflict with others. A phoenix, on the other hand, is a creature that embodies both beauty and danger, capable of bursting into flames and being reborn from its ashes. Such a transformation could be incredibly risky, not just for the animagus, but for everyone around them. One might wonder if the very act of transforming into a magical creature could lead to unintended consequences. Could a wizard become overwhelmed by the power of the creature they had transformed into, losing control of their human consciousness? It is suggested that Animagi maintain a deep connection to their human selves even while in their animal form. However, this is not guaranteed. If the transformation were into something as powerful and mystical as a phoenix or a hippogriff, could the wizard retain control, or would they become consumed by the magical nature of the creature? Number 14. Why doesn't the ministry use Animagi for intelligence work? In the world of magic, one of the most remarkable and unique abilities a witch or wizard can possess is the ability to transform into an animal. The power to become an animagus, a wizard or witch, who can voluntarily change into a specific animal at will, seems like the perfect tool for espionage. When one thinks about the potential of using Animagi in covert operations, especially during times of war, it seems only logical that the Ministry of Magic would have formed a special squad of animagus spies. They could move through crowds undetected, listen in on conversations and gather information without ever being noticed. And yet, despite the obvious advantages, there is no mention of any such team during the turbulent years of the First and Second Wizarding Wars against Voldemort. The question remains, why didn't the Ministry harness the power of Animagi in their intelligence efforts? One might assume that the Ministry, in times of great danger, would have recognized the immense value in employing Animagi as spies. After all, if the ability to transform into an animal is so difficult to master and so difficult for anyone other than the witch or wizard themselves to detect, why not use it to the Ministry's advantage? Imagine a well-trained team of Animagi working behind enemy lines, observing Death Eaters without ever being suspected. They could slip into enemy territory as inconspicuous animals and report back with vital intelligence. The mind boggles at how much the Ministry could have gained from this tactic, especially during the height of the conflict with Voldemort's forces. Yet as we read through the accounts of these wars, we never hear a whisper about the use of Animagi in such operations. The lack of any official animagus-based espionage division in the Ministry, records leads to one of two possible conclusions. The first possibility is that such a division does exist, but it is so classified that no one outside of certain trusted circles is aware of it. After all, the Ministry of Magic has a history of secrecy, particularly when it comes to anything related to dark magic or the fight against Voldemort. Perhaps the Ministry, understanding the value of Animagi in espionage, created a covert unit of animagus spies, but kept them so hidden that even the general public, let alone most Ministry employees, are unaware of their existence. The fact that the Ministry rarely, if ever, addresses the subject of Animagi could be a deliberate attempt to keep their use in this context under wraps. But even if there were a secret division of Animagi spies, the Ministry would still face an issue: how to control such powerful wizards and witches. Animagi are not easily trained, and not just anyone can master the art of becoming an animal. It requires great skill, concentration, and years of practice. In fact, it is only the most determined and talented witches and wizards who can achieve this transformation. In the case of James Potter, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and Remus Lupin, four of the most notable Animagi in the Harry Potter series, it took years of work to master their animagus forms. James, Sirius, and Peter all managed to achieve their transformations without the guidance of a teacher, a feat that speaks to their sheer determination. It is worth noting, however, that even they failed to become Animagi until well into their schooling at Hogwarts. This suggests that the Ministry would have faced significant hurdles in finding enough qualified individuals to form an effective espionage team. Moreover, Animagi are not without their risks. The transformation process can be dangerous if not properly mastered. For example, in the case of Peter Pettigrew, the transformation seemed to strip him of his ability to distinguish between his human mind and his animal instinct. This is seen when he is trapped in his rat form for years, unable to shift back into his human form until it is convenient for him. Such a scenario could prove disastrous in the context of espionage, where control over one's mind and actions is crucial. The Ministry would likely have been hesitant to entrust such a powerful and potentially unstable ability to spies, especially if they feared that Animagi might lose control of their animal forms and risk exposing themselves to the enemy. Another possibility is that the Ministry simply did not trust Animagi enough to incorporate them into their intelligence efforts. Animagi, while impressive in their ability to transform, also come with their own set of complications. The transformation is deeply personal, and there is an inherent risk in placing such an ability into the hands of witches and wizards who may be susceptible to corruption or the temptation to use their powers for their own benefit. The most notable example of this is Peter Pettigrew, who was trusted by his friends James Potter and Sirius Black, only to later betray them to Lord Voldemort. If the Ministry of Magic had created a squad of animagus spies, there would have been an ongoing concern about the potential for betrayal, especially during a time when the wizarding world was already rife with treachery. Number 15. Can you return to human form if you're injured as an animal? In the wizarding world, Animagi are a rare breed of witches and wizards capable of transforming into animals at will. This unique skill allows them to navigate the world in a completely different way, experiencing life from the perspective of their animal form. However, despite its many advantages, the art of animagus transformation raises an uncomfortable question, one that seems to have no definitive answer. If an animagus is injured in their animal form, can they transform back into their human state and heal from the wounds? Or will the damage persist, carried over from their animal form into their human body? This question, fraught with uncertainty, is rarely discussed, yet it holds significant implications, especially for those who use animagus transformations in risky and dangerous situations like Sirius Black. Imagine for a moment that an animagus, say Sirius Black in his form as a dog, finds himself in a perilous situation. While in the form of a dog, he is struck, his paw broken and bleeding profusely. In his animal form, the injury is severe, but the question remains, if Sirius were to transform back into a human, would his human body heal the injury, or would he find himself still suffering from the same wound now located on his hands and feet? The idea of transforming back into a human while still bearing the injuries sustained in an animal form is troubling, to say the least. It suggests that the physical laws governing animagus transformations do not extend to healing, leaving the injured wizard or witch at the mercy of their animal form's limitations. The idea that an animagus might not be able to heal through transformation raises the chilling possibility that injuries incurred while in animal form might be even more dangerous. After all, an animal's body, though capable of extraordinary feats, is not necessarily as resilient or as protected as a human's. A dog's body, for example, might be more vulnerable to harm than a human's, making injuries in animal form potentially more debilitating or dangerous than if they had occurred in their human state. In Sirius's case, as a dog, he is likely to have thinner skin and less muscle protection than he would in human form, which might mean that injuries like a broken paw could be much worse for him in his animal state than they would be if he were human. Moreover, when we consider the high-stakes situations in which animagi are often involved, the risk becomes even more apparent. Sirius Black, for example, is known for using his animagus form in dangerous situations, particularly in battle. During the First and Second Wizarding Wars, Sirius transformed into his dog form to avoid detection and move more swiftly, gaining a tactical advantage in moments of peril. Yet this transformation comes with risks, as any injury sustained while in his animal form could very well carry over, not only physically, but mentally. This creates a potential vulnerability that Animagi must contend with when engaging in combat or any dangerous endeavor that requires frequent use of their animal abilities. Sirius's ability to transform into a dog is undoubtedly an asset, but the question arises, is it truly an advantage in all cases, or is it a potential liability? While his dog form provides him with speed and agility, it also exposes him to the very real risk of injury. A single misstep, a wrong move during a battle, or a close encounter with a powerful adversary could result in a debilitating injury that he may not be able to heal by simply changing back into his human form. The consequences of such injuries are not just physical, but psychological, as Animagi like Sirius are forced to consider whether their powers, which seem so formidable, could actually work against them in crucial moments. One of the more unsettling aspects of this issue is the uncertainty surrounding the rules of animagus transformation. While it is clear that an animagus can transform into an animal, the question of whether the injuries are carried over into their human form is much murkier. The magical world provides very little information about the mechanics of this transformation when it comes to healing injuries. For instance, when Harry Potter himself first learns about Animagi during his time at Hogwarts, he does not question whether injuries would transfer upon changing back into human form. The conversation revolves around the transformation itself, the time and effort required, and the complexity of the magic involved. Healing, it seems, is a side effect that has not been fully explored. Yet there are other characters in the Harry Potter series who provide insight into the potential dangers of magical transformations. Take, for example, Remus Lupin, the werewolf who is subjected to painful transformations each month. Lupin, unlike Animagi, has no control over his transformations, and the injuries he suffers during his werewolf form are horrific. The key difference, however, is that Lupin cannot simply change back into a human form and escape the consequences of his transformation. His injuries are not only carried over, but they are exacerbated by the violence of his transformation. This raises the question, if a magical creature like Lupin cannot escape the consequences of their transformation, what would prevent an animagus from suffering the same fate? In fact, the idea of injury and healing seems to be a largely unexplored territory in the magical world. The only real instances in which we see transformations affecting health are with creatures like werewolves, who are inherently dangerous and violent, or those who are permanently altered by their magical condition. In contrast, Animagi like Sirius are treated more like skilled practitioners who can control their transformations at will, but without any serious discussion of the risks associated with injury. The lack of clarity on this matter leaves Animagi vulnerable, as their injuries may not be easily healed through their transformations. Number 16. Can Animagi sense magic while in animal form? In the world of Harry Potter, magic isn't just about spells and potions. It's an intricate web of possibilities, nuances, and questions that even wizards and witches cannot always fully understand. One of the most fascinating aspects of magical beings is the phenomenon of Animagi, wizards who can transform into animals at will. While we have seen the power of Animagi in action, particularly through characters like Sirius Black, James Potter, and Minerva McGonagall, one question lingers. Can Animagi feel magic while in their animal form? At first glance, this may seem like a trivial inquiry, something that doesn't impact the larger narrative of the Harry Potter universe. But upon closer inspection, this question unearths intriguing possibilities about magical sensitivity and how far the reach of a wizard's mind extends when it resides within the body of an animal. As readers, we witness Animagi maintaining their human consciousness while transformed. Sirius Black, for example, transforms into a large black dog in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, yet his ability to think, reason, and communicate remains undisturbed. His actions, reactions, and even his very presence are a testament to the strength of the human intellect retained within the animal form. However, what happens when magic interacts with this form? Can an animagus, for example, feel the weight of the imperious curse, which forces the victim into total submission? We know from Harry's encounters with the curse that it can affect even the most skilled witches and wizards, forcing them into a state where they lose all sense of autonomy. Would an animagus, even one as skilled as Sirius, still be able to resist this curse if placed upon him in his animal form? Or would he simply be subject to the same limitations as any non-magical creature? It is easy to assume that a transformation into an animal would block an animagus's ability to feel magic, as it might be presumed that the animal's senses would take over. However, a crucial point to consider is the retention of consciousness. Sirius, in his form as a dog, still maintains a semblance of his human mind. This suggests that the magical essence of the animagus, which allows them to transform and retain their human intellect, might also be connected to their magical sensitivity. Therefore, it stands to reason that even in the form of a dog, Sirius might still sense the magic around him, just as a human would. After all, he retains his human soul in the body of a dog, and if that is the case, could he perceive magical activity such as a spell being cast, or detect the presence of charms and curses that would affect him, even if he appeared as an animal? Take, for example, the concept of the expecto patronum charm, which Harry uses to summon a Patronus to defend against Dementors. This spell, which is powerful enough to ward off dark creatures, requires a specific emotional and mental focus. If an animagus like Sirius were to be near Harry while he cast this spell, would Sirius, in his dog form, feel the magical energy of the Patronus? It is possible, even likely, that he would. After all, the Patronus is not just a manifestation of power, it is a direct extension of the caster's will and intent. The magical energy coursing through it is something a wizard can feel, even without seeing it physically. Could Sirius, in his animal form, feel the ripple of magic in the air the way we might feel a powerful gust of wind or an electrical charge? This is a question that lingers without an easy answer, but the idea that an animagus could still sense magic adds an intriguing layer to the complexity of their abilities. What about other spells, such as Avada Kedavra, the killing curse? This is perhaps the most deadly of all curses, and its magic is described as a green flash of light. For a wizard, the feeling of the curse's approach is unmistakable, a sense of deep foreboding and dread. But for an animagus, could this curse be something they could perceive in their animal form? Considering that Sirius has experienced the curse before, in his human form and is acutely aware of its danger, might he still feel its presence in his dog form? Could he sense the magical current of the curse in the same way a human might, even though he is trapped in the body of an animal? It is certainly an unsettling thought to consider, an animagus who, while in their animal form, could be rendered vulnerable to the devastating power of a curse simply because they cannot recognize it in time or defend themselves. This leads us to another intriguing possibility, the idea that Animagi could serve as the perfect spies or assassins. If an animagus can feel magic while in their animal form, it would mean they could detect magical traps, wards, and even the presence of dark wizards who are using magic in their vicinity. Imagine an animagus cloaked in the form of a harmless animal slipping into a highly protected area undetected because they could sense the magical aura of protective charms. They could navigate these wards with ease, or perhaps even disable them without drawing attention. This makes Animagi potentially powerful, but also deeply dangerous. An animal that appears innocent may be capable of executing tasks far beyond its animal capabilities. An animagus could be the ideal secret agent, capable of moving through spaces where humans cannot. Furthermore, the concept of an animagus as a potential assassin is just as compelling. If an animagus could indeed feel the magic of curses and spells, they could strategically position themselves to deliver a fatal blow without their true identity ever being revealed. If an animagus, such as Sirius in his dog form, could sense the magical intentions of another wizard, they might be able to anticipate an attack and counter it with their own magic, even if they were unable to use spells in their animal form. The idea that an animagus, simply by being attuned to the magical world in their animal shape, could take down an opponent who would otherwise be impervious to physical threats is both chilling and fascinating. At the same time, there are limitations to this theory. We know that Animagi, despite their remarkable abilities, are not invincible. While they retain their minds within their animal forms, it's clear that their physical capabilities are limited to those of the animal they transform into. A dog, for example, does not have the strength or magic of a human wizard. While they may be able to sense magic, their ability to counteract it would depend on how the spell interacts with their magical essence. It's possible that an animagus would not be able to use their full magical power while in animal form, rendering them vulnerable to certain types of magical attacks. Perhaps it is only a select few, like the marauders, who are skilled enough to use their abilities to their advantage in such dangerous ways. And yet the question remains, can an animagus truly sense magic in animal form? While we may never know the definitive answer, the implications are far-reaching. If they can, it would change everything we understand about the nature of Animagi and their relationship to magic. It could open up a whole new realm of espionage, and magical warfare, one where animals are not just pets or familiars, but hidden threats with the ability to detect and respond to the magic all around them. What is clear, however, is that the question itself raises a new level of complexity in the magical world. Just as wizards struggle with the limits of their own powers, Animagi must contend with the question of whether they can ever truly escape the magic that defines them. The next time we encounter an animagus, we may find ourselves wondering not just what they are capable of physically, but how deeply they are attuned to the very fabric of magic itself. Could their animal form be more than it seems? Only time will tell. Number 17. Does being an animagus affect lifespan? A peculiar question has lingered in the wizarding world for years. Does the practice of animagus transformation affect the lifespan of the wizard who undergoes it? To understand this question, one must first consider the nature of animagus magic. It is no simple feat to transform into an animal, let alone to master it. The skill is so complex that only a few wizards and witches among the most talented and determined can successfully accomplish it. But what of the long-term effects of such frequent transformations? Can this constant shifting between human and animal forms have a profound impact on a wizard or's health? On one hand, the magical world is full of examples where magic can rejuvenate and strengthen the human body. The practice of potions, for instance, often involves concoctions that extend life, heal wounds, and restore vitality. Magic, in this sense, is seen as something that transcends the limits of nature. However, there is also the counter-argument. Frequent and prolonged use of transformation magic may place a toll on the practitioner. After all, animals live far shorter lives than humans, and spending too much time in an animal form could potentially shorten one's own life, as it might wear down the body, steers natural resilience. The animagus process is grueling, taking years to master. The most famous example is that of James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, who became Animagi during their time at Hogwarts. The transformation itself is extremely taxing on the wizard's mind and body. The process requires an immense amount of concentration, mental discipline, and emotional control. The transformation can only be successful if a wizard understands both the animal they wish to become and themselves. For James Potter, who transformed into a stag, and Sirius Black, who transformed into a large dog, their animagus forms were extensions of themselves, symbols of their personalities. Yet the question remains, did this constant shifting into an animal form, even if temporary, have lasting effects on their health? While these wizards were undoubtedly some of the most skilled magic users of their time, the reality of animagus transformation may not be as innocuous as it seems. There is a certain instability that comes with shifting between forms. It is not just a matter of changing one's outward appearance. An animagus also experiences a different set of instincts and behaviors, often leading to a significant disruption in their usual way of thinking. The shift from a human to an animal form, especially if done frequently, can place stress on the body, as organs, and magical energy. The body may struggle to adjust to the strain, and while magic can in some cases heal and rejuvenate, the long-term consequences of such a transformation remain largely unknown. Furthermore, animals have vastly different life expectancies compared to humans. For instance, a dog like Sirius Black's animagus form typically lives for 12-15 years, a far shorter lifespan than that of a human. If a wizard were to spend years living as an animal, would it ultimately reduce their human lifespan? It's important to consider the fact that animals, while living shorter lives, have evolved to thrive in their environments. Their biology is different, and while it may be beneficial for them to live short, energetic lives, the same biology is not adapted to long-term human existence. On the other hand, there are those who might argue that the practice of becoming an animagus could have the opposite effect. Could the transformation stabilize and rejuvenate the wizard's physical form, helping them live longer than a typical human? Magic in the wizarding world often enhances the practitioner, strength, agility, and endurance, with potions like the Draught of Living Death being the prime example of the profound power of magic. So, could the ability to transform into an animal, essentially bridging the gap between two distinct life forms, bring some form of magical balance that prolongs life? To explore this possibility, let's consider the example of Professor Minerva McGonagall, a registered animagus who has the ability to transform into a cat. While her transformation is not depicted as a central theme in the Harry Potter series, it is clear that McGonagall is a formidable witch. Her animagus form is likely a well-maintained skill, something she has perfected over many years of practice. McGonagall, despite her age, remains sharp, physically agile, and mentally astute, all qualities that suggest that perhaps her magical abilities, including her animalgus form, contribute to her well-being. Though not as heavily emphasized as the transformations of others, her role in the magical community, coupled with her resilience and longevity, may hint at the potential benefits of this kind of magic. There is also the case of Rita Skeeter, another witch who is an animagus, albeit one with less noble intentions. Rita Skeeter's transformation into a beetle allows her to eavesdrop on private conversations, exploiting her power for her own gain. While Skeeter's transformation does not seem to bring any obvious physical benefits, it is clear that her ability to assume her animagus form is linked to her career and the power she holds as a journalist. Her success and longevity in her field could suggest that the practice of transforming might contribute to her ability to adapt and thrive in different circumstances, possibly hinting at the stabilizing nature of such magic. One of the most pressing questions, however, is whether the physical strain of transformation can outweigh its benefits. The process of turning into an animal is far from simple. Each shift involves complex magic that affects the body on a cellular level. As animals live shorter lives than humans, it is conceivable that repeated transformations, particularly over long periods, might accelerate the aging process in ways that are not immediately obvious. This becomes especially critical when considering wizards and witches who might choose to spend extended periods in their animagus forms. Over time, such shifts could potentially lead to the breakdown of magical stamina or even cause irreparable damage to the body. It's also important to consider the magical risks that come with transformation. The danger of permanent damage or even death in an animal form is not to be taken lightly. If an animagus were to remain in their animal form for too long, the magic might begin to lose its stability. A prime example of this is the tragic fate of Peter Pettigrew. His transformation into a rat was not something that was done lightly, and it is hinted that his prolonged time as an animal led to his eventual downfall. While Pettigrew's story is not solely about the effects of animagus magic, it serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of too much reliance on magical transformation. His extended period spent as a rat, living for years in hiding, may very well have played a role in his deterioration. This leads us to consider the long-term impact of Animagus transformation on the wizarding community. In the end, it's likely that the answer is not a simple yes or no. There are too many variables at play, such as the individual, physical health, the frequency of transformation, and the type of animal form to draw definitive conclusions. However, it is clear that the magical world has not fully explored the implications of such powerful transformations. While magic may indeed hold the key to extended life, it may also be a double-edged sword capable of both prolonging and shortening life in ways that are not immediately understood. What remains undeniable is that Animagus transformation is an intricate, mysterious, and potentially dangerous form of magic. It involves both the mastery of one's own self and the ability to become something entirely different. Whether this magical skill enhances or diminishes the lifespan of the practitioner is still a question that has not been answered. For now, it remains one of the many tantalizing mysteries of the wizarding world, just waiting for further exploration. Number 18. What happens if an animagus transforms into an extinct animal? In the world of Harry Potter, one of the most intriguing and mysterious forms of magic is animagus transformation. The ability to turn into an animal at will is a magical skill that requires intense focus, years of training, and an intimate understanding of the wizard's own magical nature. However, this fascinating ability raises a particularly intriguing question that has remained unexplored in the canon. What would happen if an animagus transformed into an extinct animal, one that no longer exists in the Muggle world? Could a wizard become something that history has erased, an ancient creature that roamed the earth millions of years ago, like a saber-toothed tiger or even a mammoth? Let's consider the implications of this question. The animagus transformation is rooted in a wizard's ability to connect deeply with their magical core, allowing them to become an animal that reflects their inner nature. This is a difficult process, as seen with Harry's own struggles with shape-shifting into a Patronus. If one could become a creature that no longer roams the earth, it suggests a unique connection between the wizard and the long-forgotten magic of the past. This idea brings an intriguing possibility. Animagus transformation could serve as a portal to the past, blurring the line between magic and mythology. In J.K. Rowling's world, magic is not just about the present. It has echoes of the ancient world where creatures like dragons, phoenixes, and hippogriffs roamed freely. The existence of extinct magical creatures like the basilisk, for instance, shows that the wizarding world as history is deeply intertwined with creatures long thought to be myths. The potential for an animagus to become a creature from an ancient time, such as the legendary saber-toothed tiger, brings the possibility of encountering magical remnants of the past, creatures and magic that have been forgotten by Muggle society. Imagine, for a moment, that a wizard with a deep, primal connection to the earth, like Hagrid, were able to transform into a saber-toothed tiger. Such a transformation would be more than just a simple change of form. It would be an echo from a time when such creatures ruled the earth. As Hagrid is known for his affinity with magical creatures, one could imagine him being able to transform into such an ancient beast, embodying the wild and untamed spirit of those long-lost creatures. But the question becomes even more intriguing when we consider what might happen if such a wizard were to lose control of their transformation. Would they still retain their human consciousness while in the form of an extinct animal? Or would they be lost entirely to the beast they became? In the case of a creature like the saber-toothed tiger, whose instincts would have been far removed from the human intellect, the wizard might find themselves overwhelmed by the animal's mind. They might struggle to remember who they are, and their connection to the present would blur, leaving them stranded in an ancient state of being. In such a scenario, magic becomes something far more dangerous, an ancient force that could erase the human behind the spell. The possibilities grow even more compelling when we expand beyond terrestrial animals. What if the animagus transformation allowed a wizard to become a creature of the skies, such as a massive bird of prey that once soared over the prehistoric world? A giant eagle, akin to the legendary birds mentioned in myths, could easily be an extinct species that once inhabited the skies above Scotland, making it a perfect candidate for an animagus transformation. Imagine the view from the sky, watching the hustle and bustle of modern life from the heights where ancient birds once ruled. To be able to glide above the towers of Hogwarts, looking down on the students below, would be an experience of unparalleled freedom and power. Even more fascinating is the possibility of ancient creatures that are believed to be lost to history, such as the mammoth. Picture an animagus who becomes a mammoth, with its towering form and the weight of centuries upon its back. Hidden deep within the Scottish Highlands, it could wander through forests that have remained untouched by time. This creature, a remnant of the Ice Age, could represent a wizard who has chosen to leave behind the world of men, seeking exile in a form that is as ancient as the magic that created it. In such a case, the animagus would not simply be an animal in the conventional sense, but would be carrying the burden of time itself. The magic required to maintain such a form could be taxing, for it would link the wizard to the long-forgotten creatures of the past. Perhaps the wizard would remain in this form for an eternity, lost to time but still connected to the human world in some distant way. The idea of magic as a time-traveling force, allowing one to step into the long-forgotten past through the animagus transformation, brings a whole new layer to the depth of magic in the Harry Potter universe. This raises an even more chilling possibility. What if the wizard, once transformed, becomes stuck in the form of an extinct animal? What if their connection to the world of humans is severed entirely, leaving them only as a beast, roaming the world with no memory of their former self? Could this be an ancient form of exile, a magical punishment for a forgotten crime? The wizard, in becoming a mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger, could be condemned to an eternity of wandering in the forests and mountains, a silent witness to the passing of time. In this sense, animagus transformation could become not just an ability, but a curse, one that binds the wizard forever to a creature of the past, lost to history. This also raises the question of whether any other wizards or witches have experienced such a fate. Are there forgotten animagi in the world, wandering the earth in the form of extinct creatures? Could there be an entire class of ancient wizards who transformed into creatures long since erased from memory? The possibility of finding traces of these forgotten animagi in the form of ancient creatures like mammoths or saber-toothed tigers adds a layer of mystery to the magical world. It is as though the boundaries between magic, history, and myth have become blurred, and what once seemed impossible may not be so far-fetched after all. In the Harry Potter books, there are numerous examples of how magic can sometimes escape the boundaries of what is understood. For instance, when Harry first learns about the Marauder's map, it is a magical object that allows him to see people and places that would otherwise be invisible. The map itself is a product of ancient magic, and it serves as a reminder that the wizarding world is full of hidden wonders and forgotten knowledge. Animagi's transformation, if taken to its extremes, could serve as another example of magic that goes beyond the conventional, allowing wizards to tap into the deep well of history and mythology. One can also imagine how such transformations would affect the world of magical creatures. For example, a wizard who transforms into a mammoth might find that they are able to communicate with other magical creatures in ways that would not be possible in human form. The ancient magic of the creature could awaken dormant powers within them, and they might develop a deeper connection to the natural world. This could result in a greater understanding of the magical creatures of the present, as well as an insight into the creatures that once roamed the earth. Furthermore, the existence of such beings, whether as a result of Animagi's transformation or ancient magic, would likely remain a closely guarded secret. The Ministry of Magic would undoubtedly be interested in such anomalies, as they would represent a significant breakthrough in understanding the boundaries of magic. The wizarding world has always been cautious about the intersection of magic and the natural world, and the appearance of a living mammoth or saber-toothed tiger would undoubtedly cause waves of both fascination and fear. The idea that the Animagi's transformation could tap into a forgotten world, one that exists on the fringes of time and history, opens up a wealth of possibilities in the Harry Potter universe. It reminds us that magic is not just about what is present and tangible, but also about what is hidden and ancient. In a world where even the past can come alive, who knows what other secrets are waiting to be uncovered, lying dormant, waiting for the right wizard to bring them back into the light. Number 19. Do Animagi have animal instinct? In the wizarding world, Animagi are celebrated as one of the most complex and rare feats of magic. The ability to transform into an animal is not merely an extension of magical prowess, but an intimate exploration of its own identity and power. However, the deeper implications of this transformation remain largely unexplored. While the act of becoming an animal is impressive, there is an unsettling question that lurks beneath the surface. Do Animagi inherit the instincts and behaviors of the creatures they become? Do they risk losing control over their human selves, or worse, could these animal instincts consume them entirely? Sirius Black's transformation into a massive black dog is a perfect example of the potential dangers that come with this ability. As a young man, Sirius had no control over his transformations, and it was only later in life that he fully embraced his animagus form as a way to escape the confines of a wizarding world that had rejected him. Yet when he takes the form of a dog, something changes. In this state, Sirius is more than just a person in the guise of an animal. He is fully a dog in mind and behavior, exhibiting the loyalty, protectiveness, and perhaps most tellingly, the aggressiveness of a territorial creature. One particularly striking moment is when Sirius, in his canine form, fiercely protects Harry from danger. When the trio is ambushed by Dementors on the grounds of Hogwarts, Sirius, looking more like an unrestrained beast than a human, snarls and barks, ready to fight off anything that threatens his pack. In this moment, it is clear that Sirius' animal instincts are not only active, but also overpowering. He growls with his hackles raised, aggressively defending Harry. This outburst of aggression raises an uncomfortable question. How much of this territorial aggression is Sirius himself, and how much is the dog inside him taking control? If an animagus takes the form of a particularly aggressive animal, such as a bear or a lion, it raises even more serious concerns. Would the animagus be at risk of losing control of their human faculties? If so, what happens when these forms are triggered by instinctual reactions, like a perceived threat or a challenge to dominance? If the person cannot regain control, could they become dangerous? The risk here is far from theoretical. It is deeply rooted in the animal's instincts, which are inherently linked to survival and territory. The animagus may be physically in control of their body, but mentally, the question remains, can the human soul ever truly suppress the animal's instincts? One tragic example that suggests the loss of control is Peter Pettigrew, who transforms into a rat. Unlike Sirius, who was able to channel his animal form into something protective and noble, Pettigrew becomes a manifestation of fear and cowardice. When he is in his rat form, he scurries away from danger, acting with a complete lack of bravery, even when his very existence is at stake. His rat instincts, fearful, paranoid, always fleeing, seem to overpower the man within. This raises another unsettling possibility. When a person transforms into an animal with negative or self-preserving instincts, do they become slaves to those impulses? Is Pettigrew's tendency to hide and betray his friends not just a matter of personal cowardice, but a manifestation of his rat form's fundamental characteristics? In some ways, Pettigrew, as animal behavior reveals a dark truth about Animagi, their animal forms may amplify the worst of their human qualities. His fear-driven actions as a rat, ultimately betraying his friends to save his own skin, reflect the worst of human nature, mirroring the same survivalist instinct that would define a creature like a rat. But what if the animal form is not inherently fearful or cowardly, but rather aggressively territorial or predatory? Take, for example, Remus Lupin. As a werewolf, Lupin transforms into a creature whose instincts are undeniably violent, driven by the cycle of the moon and his own inner turmoil. While Lupin is not an animagus, the curse he suffers has similar implications. When he transforms, the human element of his mind fades, and he becomes driven entirely by the instincts of the werewolf, territorial, predatory, and completely beyond his control. Unlike an animagus who retains some human consciousness while transformed, Lupin's werewolf form is all-consuming. This is where the real danger lies for Animagi. The transformation itself may not be inherently dangerous, but if the instincts of the animal form overpower the person's own judgment and will, there is a risk of tragedy. In Lupin's case, his inability to control the beast within him results in hurt and destruction, regardless of his desire to control it. It's this loss of control that is so terrifying about transformations, whether by magic or curse. The question remains, if an animagus takes the form of a more dangerous or territorial animal, can they retain their moral compass, or are they destined to succumb to the creature within them? The Ministry of Magic, ever watchful for signs of misuse of magic, likely recognizes the potential dangers of Animagi, but, as with many other things in the magical world, this is a subject that is not openly discussed. The tragedies that occur in the wizarding world, the mysterious deaths, disappearances, and even the inexplicable behavior of certain individuals could very well be linked to the loss of control during an animagus transformation. While the Ministry would never directly address this possibility, it is easy to imagine that some of the more unsolved cases in magical history have a direct link to the inherent dangers of animagus transformations. In a world where magic can make the impossible seem mundane, the idea that someone might lose themselves to their animal instincts seems like a quiet but powerful threat. How many more Animagi, perhaps even those who have turned to the dark arts, find themselves in situations where their human minds cannot contain the animal urges that rise within them? What happens when these instincts are triggered in times of heightened emotion, like anger or fear? Could a seemingly kind-hearted wizard turn into a vicious, unrecognizable beast? The line between human and animal could be dangerously thin, and once crossed, it might be impossible to return. The case of Sirius Black in his dog form provides a sobering warning of just how close this line can be. Sirius is a powerful wizard, yet his dog form, instinctively protective, aggressive, and territorial, rises to the surface, especially when he feels his friends are threatened. It's a far cry from the controlled, rational wizard that Sirius strives to be. The dog within him takes over, reacting with primal violence, not unlike a wild animal defending its pack. While he is not entirely consumed by this instinct, the transformation showcases just how easily one could fall into the grip of their animal nature. The question lingers: if the animal instincts become more pronounced in an animagus with a more dangerous form, how much control can a person truly maintain? It's a question that requires further exploration, as it may be that the greatest danger an animagus faces is not in their transformation, but in what happens to them when the instincts of the animal overpower their human consciousness. In the end, the balance between magic, identity, and control is an unsettling one, as the line between man and beast becomes increasingly blurred. The Ministry may never fully acknowledge it, but the truth remains: becoming an animagus is as much a battle within as it is a display of magical prowess. Number 20, can someone be forcibly turned into an animagus? The transformation into an animagus is one of the most intricate and mysterious branches of magic in the wizarding world. The ability to shift between human and animal forms is a symbol of immense skill, dedication, and, in some cases, secrecy. But what happens when this power is no longer a choice? What if it is forcibly imposed on someone, manipulated through dark magic or malicious intent? The question lingers in the shadows of the magical community. Can someone be transformed into an animagus against their will? And if so, what horrors could emerge from such a dark and twisted use of magic? The idea of turning a person into an animagus through manipulation is not only unsettling, but raises profound ethical questions. The transformation requires immense effort and a deep understanding of the magical essence of both the wizard and the animal they wish to become. To forcibly force someone into an animagus form would be no small feat, and its implications are far-reaching. Could it be done through a curse or deception, twisting someone's very essence into something they did not choose? Would the victim's soul be trapped within the form, losing their humanity, or would they remain fully aware of their transformation, tortured by their helplessness? One might argue that the potential for such an event is terrifying. Imagine being transformed into a creature that symbolizes weakness or vulnerability. An insect, for instance, something universally regarded as insignificant or even repulsive. In the case of a particularly cruel scenario, what if a person was turned into a slug or a mosquito? Would their minds remain intact as their bodies became tiny, helpless creatures, subject to the whims of those around them? This leads to a darker question. Could someone be forced into such a form to be humiliated, controlled, or even discarded like trash? The Ministry of Magic has a duty to protect the magical world, but it seems that not all its actions align with the principles of fairness and justice. Such a dangerous and invasive form of magic, whether through a curse or a twisted experiment, could be swept under the rug. If an animagus transformation could be turned into a tool for oppression, then the line between justice and tyranny becomes dangerously thin. Consider, for example, a case where a powerful figure in the wizarding world might use this magic to punish an enemy. Rather than dispatching a foe through conventional means, they could transform them into something small, insignificant, and utterly helpless. A beetle, a mouse, or perhaps something more grotesque, such as a mosquito buzzing around until it was no longer of any use. The transformation would be permanent, and the victim, now utterly diminished in size and power, would be at the mercy of whoever had performed the spell. There would be no room for defense, no way for the victim to fight back or escape. The question arises, is it possible to simply crush the victim once they have been reduced to a helpless form? Could a person, once transformed into an animal, be discarded or eradicated without consequence? And if this were possible, why does no one speak of it? It's easy to see how such acts of cruelty might be suppressed. After all, if such an abuse of power were allowed to happen, it would tear apart the very foundations of the magical community's ethics. The consequences of acknowledging such a breach of trust would be too great. Perhaps this dark potential has already been explored in the past, but buried under the weight of secrecy and fear. The Ministry of Magic, which often deals with the darker aspects of magical law, would likely prefer to silence any such cases. After all, who could speak out about the horrors of being transformed into a creature at the whim of a dark wizard? How could one live to tell the tale after enduring such a violation of their body and soul? In the wizarding world, a number of dark wizards and witches have used similar forms of manipulation to control others, and the animagus transformation could easily be twisted for nefarious purposes. The most infamous case might be that of Peter Pettigrew, whose transformation into a rat allowed him to hide for years in plain sight. However, this case is not the same as someone being forcibly turned into an animagus, yet it does highlight the fact that animagi are not infallible. When they choose to use their animal forms for deceit or evasion, they can easily conceal themselves from the world. But what if they didn't have the choice? Could a dark wizard exploit this transformation, creating animagi under duress? A person turned against their will, perhaps through a vicious curse or forced magical experiment, might lose all sense of their identity. Their humanity would be crushed beneath the weight of their forced animal form, and the mind that once made them who they were might be lost forever. Perhaps there would be no way to reverse the curse, leaving the victim trapped in an endless cycle of fear and helplessness. There are rumors in the magical world about experiments gone wrong, ones conducted by dark wizards who sought to harness the power of transformation for their own gain. Could these experiments have involved creating animagi against the will of their victims? If such occurrences were real, it's easy to see how they would be covered up. The ministry, in its desire to preserve order, would never allow such a scandal to surface. The mere idea of people being forcibly transformed into animals, manipulated for the amusement of cruel wizards, would shake the very core of the wizarding world. The ethical ramifications are staggering. If such acts of dark magic were allowed to exist, they would not only defy the basic principles of justice, but would also question the very nature of what it means to be human. If a person can be reduced to an animal, stripped of their identity and cast aside, what does that say about the value of life in the wizarding world? Shouldn't every person, regardless of their form, have the right to choose their fate? The ministry's reluctance to discuss or investigate such dark magic raises even more questions. Could these acts already have occurred in secret, hidden behind closed doors, where only those with enough power could make such a transformation a reality? Perhaps the ministry itself has been complicit in the silence, hiding the truth from the public to avoid a public outcry. And so the question remains, can a person be forcibly transformed into an animagus? It is a dark thought, but one that is worth pondering. In a world where dark magic is all too real and where powerful wizards and witches often use magic for personal gain, it's not entirely beyond the realm of possibility. Whether it has been done before or not, the very idea of someone being stripped of their humanity and reduced to an animal is a terrifying prospect. The ministry may refuse to address the matter, but the truth is that the magical world is not as safe as it would like to appear. If such dark magic exists, perhaps it is time the wizarding community took a closer look at the ethics of animagus transformation and at the dangers that lie hidden in the shadows. Number 21. Can Animagi speak while in animal form? In the world of wizardry, the transformation into an animagus is a rare and difficult skill, one that requires intense focus, mastery of magic, and a profound connection with the animal form a witch or wizard wishes to adopt. The transformation allows them to take on the shape of an animal, granting them the power to move unnoticed and experience the world from a different perspective. However, one question that has often lingered among fans of the Harry Potter series is whether or not an animagus can speak in their animal form. Most animagi we know, such as James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew, are silent when in their animal forms. When Harry encounters Sirius as a large black dog, he notices the animal's behavior and appearance, but never does the dog speak. This absence of speech seems to be the default for animagi, yet it raises an interesting question. Why can't an animagus speak as an animal? After all, animals have vocal cords, and many creatures possess the ability to make sounds that resemble speech, albeit in distorted or primal forms. So, why would magic prevent an animagus from speaking while in their animal form? The most straightforward answer might be that the magical transformation is not merely physical. Becoming an animagus is about more than just adopting the shape and size of an animal. It's about embodying the animal's essence. The change is not just skin deep. The witch or wizard's consciousness merges with that of the creature, and the magic involved could very well block the faculties of speech, which are distinctly human. Perhaps the animal form is meant to act as a kind of barrier, a way to prevent any leakage of human thoughts or speech into the animal world. After all, The ability to speak could lead to the discovery of a hidden animagus, potentially revealing their identity to enemies. If a dog suddenly spoke the words, "Hello, Potter," in an alleyway, who would believe the claim? Certainly not the unsuspecting passerby, who might only hear a bark. This idea raises another fascinating point. Could there have been instances of Animagi who attempted to speak in their animal forms? The idea is tantalizing. Perhaps there were rare cases where an animagus, in a moment of desperation or curiosity, tried to communicate while in their animal shape. A dog who tries to bark words but instead only produces indistinct, garbled sounds. A cat whose meows are unusually articulate, though still unintelligible to human ears. These instances would likely go unnoticed by the general public, who would assume that the animals were just acting out of the ordinary for their species. And who could blame them? After all, no one would suspect that an ordinary dog might be capable of uttering human words. In the world of magical creatures, speech and communication are often blurred. We see instances where magical animals can speak, such as the parrot-like voice of Fawkes, Dumbledore's Phoenix, or the snarky remarks of the Weasley twins' self-knitting broomsticks. However, these are either magical creatures with inherent abilities or enchanted objects, not animagi. If magical animals can speak, it is not due to their animal form, but because of their magical nature. Animagi, however, are not inherently magical creatures. They are human witches and wizards who take on the shape of animals through transformation. The magical barriers that come with their transformation could be what prevents speech altogether. Consider the case of Peter Pettigrew, who transforms into a rat. We know that rats, like most animals, do not possess the ability to speak. Even if Pettigrew, as a human, had the ability to speak, his transformation would strip him of this capability. His rat form serves as a kind of magical mask, one that shields his true identity and keeps him silent. It is easy to imagine how dangerous it would be if Pettigrew, in his rat form, could speak. Not only would his disguise be compromised, but the magic of animagus transformation works precisely because the animal cannot articulate thoughts or ideas. Any speech in an animal form would make the use of this form far less effective. Then we must consider the nature of magic itself. In the Harry Potter universe, magic is often a complex and multi-layered force, with rules that are not immediately apparent. For example, the charm that allows a witch or wizard to turn into an animagus is so intricate that it requires years of practice and immense concentration. The fact that this transformation doesn't allow for speech might simply be another safeguard built into the spell. Magic, in this sense, could be preventing the animagus from using their human faculties altogether while in their animal shape. Perhaps the magic inherently blocks certain human functions, such as the ability to speak, to ensure that the transformation is complete and authentic. This would make the transformation far more secure, as no animagus would be able to inadvertently reveal their true nature through speech. One might ask, what would happen if an animagus could speak? Imagine the chaos that could ensue if a group of animagi, each able to articulate their thoughts while in their animal forms, were to meet. They could have conversations as animals, discussing plans and sharing secrets without ever revealing themselves as humans. For example, an animagus who had transformed into a dog could walk through a crowd and communicate covertly with other animagi in the same shape. The risk of exposing such a secret would be tremendous. The the magical world might have had to implement laws or additional magical rules to prevent such practices, perhaps even going so far as to prevent the use of the animagus form for spying or covert communication. In the story, when Harry first meets Sirius as a dog, he is initially unaware of the dog's true identity. He sees Sirius's transformation as just another piece of the puzzle in their strange adventure. But imagine if Sirius had spoken while in dog form. Harry might have immediately recognized him, or worse, others might have overheard the conversation. The magic of transformation works well because it leaves no trace of the human behind. An animagus cannot leave a footprint in the world of magic if their animal form is devoid of human characteristics such as speech. It's also worth mentioning that certain magical creatures, such as Dementors, have the power to affect the ability to speak or think. When Harry is confronted by Dementors, he is overwhelmed with darkness and an inability to speak. Could it be that the magic surrounding Dementors works similarly to the magic of animagus transformation, in that it suppresses certain faculties to protect the integrity of the experience? The idea of magic blocking communication could, in fact, be part of a larger mechanism in the magical world, where speech itself is seen as a powerful tool that must be carefully guarded. The idea of an animagus speaking in animal form is ultimately a fascinating one, filled with intrigue and mystery. It seems that the answer lies not in the physical transformation itself, but in the magical laws that govern it. The magic blocks not just the body, but also the mind, severing the link between the animagus and their human self to preserve their disguise. Whether this is done to prevent discovery or simply to complete the magical experience is something we may never fully understand, yet it remains one of the many mysterious aspects of the magical world, a question without a definitive answer, leaving fans to ponder the possibilities. Number 22. Can a wizard have two animagus forms? In the world of magic, there is one question that remains persistently uncomfortable for many wizards and witches. Can one wizard possess two animagus forms? It's a subject of constant debate, especially when the boundaries of magic seem to be shifting and more questions arise than answers. The idea of transformation, whether it's the ever-changing Patronus or the shifting body in transfiguration, is well known, but could a wizard's internal self be so unstable, so unpredictable, that they could manifest not one, but two distinct animal forms? The possibilities are terrifying yet fascinating. What if emotional turmoil or immense magical stress causes this transformation to shift unexpectedly, causing the wizard to adopt a new animal shape entirely? Take, for instance, a wizard who has registered their animagus form as something benign, perhaps a cat, like Minerva McGonagall. She has a deep connection to this form, a symbol of her very being, a representation of her personality and character. McGonagall's form is stable, a true and loyal reflection of who she is. However, what happens if, under intense emotional strain or magical conflict, this animagus form changes? Could it be that the magic shifts in such a way that instead of the expected cat, the wizard becomes another animal entirely? A bird? A fox? Or something more dangerous, perhaps? The idea alone causes a ripple of unease. The internal essence of the wizard is suddenly unstable, and the consequences of this instability could be catastrophic, not just for the wizard, but for everyone around them. Now imagine a wizard under great emotional distress, perhaps feeling an overwhelming sense of loss, fear, or anger. These emotions are capable of provoking more than just tears or rage. They could invoke a change in their animagus form. Instead of the familiar shape, the wizard's magical essence becomes volatile, transforming into a completely different animal. It is almost as though the wizard has its emotional state has become so out of control that it manifests physically in a way that their magic cannot contain. Perhaps this would happen only under specific conditions, when the wizard feels threatened, when they are in a state of emotional chaos, or when their very sense of self is being questioned. When we speak of Animagi, we refer to the extraordinary magical talent that allows a wizard to take the shape of one animal, one that embodies a part of their soul. What happens, though, if a wizard is unable to control this transformation, if it starts shifting unpredictably? There are countless stories of wizards who struggled with this very concept. One particularly striking example would be Sirius Black, who was able to transform into a large black dog. For Sirius, this transformation was a crucial part of his identity. It was the symbol of his rebellion against his family and their pure-blood ideals. But what if, in a moment of emotional chaos, Sirius had experienced another shift in his animagus form? What if, instead of the dog he knew, he had become something else? A wolf, perhaps, reflecting his wild nature, or even something entirely different like a bird of prey, embodying his desire for freedom and escape. Would that not be a reflection of his inner turmoil, the dark emotions that had been festering within him for so long? This would not just be a trivial matter. If an animagus were to experience such a change, it would certainly be problematic. The Ministry of Magic would likely take issue with this. Animagi must be registered, and having two distinct forms could create chaos. The wizard could be accused of attempting to deceive the ministry, or worse, of using their power for malicious purposes. What if a wizard's transformation was not limited to a single form? If they could shift from one animal to another at will, or worse, without control, this could easily be seen as an uncontrollable magical anomaly. What would the ministry do with someone whose magical essence was so unstable? What would happen to their registry? The implications would be far-reaching. Would this wizard be stripped of their status as an animagus? Would they be confined to Azkaban, accused of tampering with the very fabric of magical law? Think of the impact on the wizard themselves. The burden of constantly shifting between two identities could be emotionally and psychologically damaging. The wizard would no longer be in control of their own form. Imagine the chaos in their mind, unable to distinguish between their human form and the forms they take on as animals. The emotional and magical strain of such a transformation could potentially destroy the wizard, his sense of self, leading to dangerous consequences not only for them, but for those around them as well. It's hard to ignore the complexity of such a scenario. The notion of having two distinct animagus forms brings us to a new layer of magical understanding. It challenges the very essence of magical identity and control. The animagus form is not just a manifestation of magic, it is a deep, personal connection to the wizard's soul. To have two such forms could mean that the wizard's very soul is fragmented, creating a dangerous rift in their identity. The potential for confusion, for loss of control, becomes ever-present. The very foundation of magical law would have to be re-evaluated to account for this anomaly. In a world where control over magical powers is paramount, the idea of a wizard who could not control their animagus form presents a real and terrifying threat. Perhaps the most intriguing question of all is whether such a wizard would even be able to function within the society that created such rules. Could they still work for the Ministry of Magic? Knowing that their own form is unstable, could they trust themselves to act as a responsible, controlled member of society when they were unable to trust their own magical nature? Let's consider the implications for magical relationships as well. The relationship between a wizard and their animagus form is sacred. It is a reflection of their inner self, something that binds them to their magical essence. If this bond were to change or become unstable, how could they maintain any sense of stability in their relationships? A wizard with two forms might struggle with their identity, always questioning which form represents who they truly are. They might find themselves constantly at odds with their own inner self, torn between two very different representations of their soul. One such example could be Severus Snape. As an accomplished wizard who had a deep connection with his dark side, it's easy to imagine him being capable of shifting not just into a doe, but potentially another form, perhaps a creature associated with his more sinister side, like a snake or a raven. What would that say about his internal struggles? Would the ministry have viewed this as dangerous, as a sign of instability, or even corruption? Would his loyalty be questioned, or would he have been seen as a danger to the wizarding world? His internal conflict between the man he wanted to be and the person he truly was could have manifested in ways he couldn't even comprehend, perhaps causing him to struggle with the very thing that defined him as an individual. The truth is, there is no easy answer to the question of whether a wizard could possess two animagus forms. The very concept challenges the very fabric of magical society. The wizarding world would have to reckon with the consequences of this anomaly, and the Ministry of Magic would have to deal with the complexities of regulating a power that is not just rare, but potentially unstable and uncontrollable. Ultimately, the question remains, if a wizard truly had two animagus forms, how could they live with it? Would they ever find a way to control the two sides of their soul, or would they be doomed to a life of internal conflict and magical instability? Only time, and perhaps a great deal of magical research, could answer that question. Number 23. Why isn't there a school for animagus training? The path of an animagus is one of the most dangerous and secretive disciplines in the wizarding world. Becoming one requires exceptional skill, perseverance, and an enormous amount of risk. Yet, in all of Hogwarts, there is no official course, no extracurricular club, and no lecture dedicated to teaching this incredible art. The absence of a formal structure for animagus training is a curious and deeply perplexing issue, especially given that Hogwarts is a school built around the nurturing of magical talent. One would think that such a powerful and useful skill would be embraced, but instead it's relegated to the shadows, a forbidden art known only to a select few. Why is this the case? The very nature of animagus magic is inherently dangerous. It demands complete mastery over one's body, mind, and magic. The process of becoming an animagus is grueling and fraught with potential failure. A wizard or witch must transform into an animal at will, a feat that requires perfect control of magical energy. The danger lies in the fact that if the transformation goes wrong, the caster could become trapped in animal form forever. This is no small risk. For those who fail to control the magic, the consequences can be irreversible. with the wizard or witch losing their human form entirely. Yet, despite these risks, the magical community has long known of the benefits that animagus transformation can offer, such as the ability to traverse the wizarding world in disguise or even evade danger. So, why does Hogwarts, the most prestigious school for young witches and wizards, not offer any official instruction on how to become an animagus? There is no sign of any class on the subject in the Hogwarts curriculum, nor is there any mention of it being taught as an extracurricular activity. The idea of controlling the magic to turn into an animal is, in theory, something that could be taught. If Hogwarts truly nurtures its students' magical talents, why does it avoid a subject as advanced and fascinating as animagus transformation? One possible reason for this could lie in the Ministry of Magic's apprehension about the spread of such powerful knowledge. The Ministry is often portrayed as a body obsessed with control and regulation, attempting to oversee and contain the use of magic in every aspect of life. It could be that animagus magic, when mastered by too many individuals, would be seen as a threat. It is a power that could potentially be used to infiltrate private spaces, spy on people, or commit crimes undetected. If this skill were widely taught, there would be little to stop unscrupulous wizards from exploiting it for their own gain. The Ministry might fear that if too many people became Animagi, it would be difficult to track those who may be using their new form to engage in illegal activities. However, it is also possible that the Ministry sees the creation of Animagi as something that should remain rare and difficult. It is not a skill to be easily handed out to just anyone. Only a select few, like Sirius Black, James Potter, and Peter Pettigrew, managed to complete the transformation while they were still in school. They did so without any formal instruction, learning on their own in secret. Their achievement was groundbreaking, and their ability to maintain secrecy is part of what made them such remarkable figures. This secretive nature might be the key to understanding why the Ministry discourages widespread knowledge of animagus transformation. Could there be an unofficial decree in place, a sort of unwritten rule that discourages the teaching of animagus magic? After all, the Marauders, James Potter, Sirius Black, Peter Pettigrew, and Remus Lupin, managed to become Animagi without the aid of any formal training. They did so outside of the school in secret, and even kept their knowledge hidden from the teachers and other students. Their success in becoming Animagi was an achievement that demonstrated their intelligence, dedication, and cunning. However, it also revealed a critical flaw in the magical education system at Hogwarts. The Marauders, brilliant as they were, had to go down a hidden, unapproved path to gain the knowledge that could have been offered to them through legitimate instruction. The school did not teach them the art, and neither did the Ministry. The Marauders' approach was not just a symbol of their personal brilliance, but also an act of defiance against the system that controlled magical knowledge. They were forced to circumvent the rules because the Ministry had long decided that animagus magic was too dangerous to be shared freely. Even though the Marauders were among the most gifted students to ever attend Hogwarts, they still had to resort to underground methods of learning, breaking rules to gain the knowledge they sought. The fact that they succeeded, becoming Animagi in their 5th year, was a testament to their immense talent, but also a statement about how difficult it was to achieve such a feat within the bounds of the system. It's interesting to note that while the Marauders were working on their transformation, they were also dealing with the very real consequences of their secrecy. Remus Lupin's werewolf condition was another secret that the group kept hidden from the rest of the school, making their animagus transformation even more important. Lupin could only be fully safe during his monthly transformations if his friends could join him in animal form, and that too speaks to the complicated nature of animagus magic. It's not just about turning into an animal for fun, it's about navigating serious, life-threatening issues and using magic to solve problems that the law, or even Hogwarts, doesn't provide solutions for. This brings us to another possibility. Maybe the lack of a formal animagus curriculum at Hogwarts is due to the inherent complexity of the magic itself. Becoming an animagus is no small task, and not every witch or wizard is cut out for it. The magical world is filled with individuals who excel at various forms of magic. Some excel in potions, others in transfiguration, and some in herbology. Animagus magic, however, requires a unique blend of skill, determination, and sometimes sheer luck. It might be that Hogwarts simply does not want to create unrealistic expectations. Not every student is capable of becoming an animagus, and it might be better to focus on the magical fields where students show more natural talent. Furthermore, there may be an unspoken understanding that becoming an animagus is not something to be taken lightly. It is an extremely advanced form of magic that should only be attempted by those who have proven their skills in other areas first. What is even more peculiar is that the wizarding world seems to accept this lack of instruction. For centuries, Hogwarts students have been encouraged to study transfiguration, charms, and other magical disciplines, but animagus magic remains largely off-limits. Those who attempt it without approval are often seen as rebels or outcasts. When Harry Potter and his friends later find out about the Marauder's transformation, they are amazed that they had been able to pull it off without any official training. It is a revelation that shakes the foundation of what students are taught to expect from the magical world. The idea that such a powerful skill could remain hidden for so long, and that it could be achieved without any formal support from Hogwarts, is an unsettling one. Perhaps the most telling aspect of this entire issue is the fact that the Marauder's story, in a sense, mirrors the very structure of the wizarding world itself. Like the Marauders, the world of magic is filled with secrets, rules, and systems that govern what is and is not allowed. The Ministry and Hogwarts, despite their desire for control, allow some things to slip through the cracks, creating a system that both limits and empowers individuals in ways that are not always clear. In the end, the question of why there is no school for animagus magic remains a mystery, but it serves as a reminder that sometimes the most powerful forms of magic exist outside the bounds of formal education and official approval. Number 24. What if a wizard loses control and gets stuck in animal form? In the wizarding world, the art of animagus transformation is one of the most complex and mysterious forms of magic, revered for its power and flexibility. To become an animagus, a witch or wizard must learn to transform into an animal at will, a feat of deep magical mastery. However, while the transformation itself is seen as a symbol of magical prowess, few know of the potential dangers that lurk beneath its surface. What happens if a magician loses control during the transformation? Could they become trapped in the form of an animal, forever losing their humanity? The very thought sends chills down the spine of those who understand the true risks behind animagus magic. It's a question few dare to ask, yet the answer is one that hints at the darker corners of the wizarding world. Animagus transformation, a process that requires immense skill and concentration, can be a perilous endeavor, especially for those who are still learning or attempting it without proper guidance. In the case of an inexperienced witch or wizard, losing control of their magic during the transformation could result in dire consequences. The possibility of becoming stuck in the animal form is a grim reality that has been whispered about in the hidden chambers of the wizarding community for centuries. The transformation, while magical, is not without its dangers, especially when one fails to respect the rules and precautions that must be followed. The transformation isn't just about becoming an animal. It is a delicate balancing act between the wizard's mind and the animal's instincts. To lose this balance is to lose everything. The danger of becoming trapped in the animal form lies in the very nature of the magic itself. Animagus transformation is not simply about changing one's appearance. It involves altering the very essence of the individual. The wizard's soul, their consciousness, must be entwined with the animal form. In doing so, they risk losing their humanity, not just in body but in mind. The longer one remains in their animal form, the harder it becomes to retain their human thoughts, emotions, and memories. It is a slow and insidious process, one that could eventually result in the complete loss of their ability to think or reason as a human. The body may remain that of a powerful magical animal, but the mind could fade into darkness, lost forever. One of the most haunting possibilities is that a person who loses control during their transformation could wander the wilds, forever stuck in the body of an animal, their mind slowly eroding away. These creatures, once humans, would become mere shadows of their former selves, trapped in a world they no longer belong to. Their human consciousness may flicker briefly from time to time, but ultimately they would forget their past lives, their magic, and their ability to speak. It would be as though they were never human at all, a tragic reminder of the dangers that come with tampering too much with the magic of transformation. This phenomenon has been a subject of dark legends in the wizarding world. It is said that some students eager to experiment with magic have ventured too far and pushed the limits of their own abilities. The temptation to break the rules to achieve what is considered impossible has driven some to disastrous ends. Those who have succumbed to the temptation of reckless animagus transformation are said to have vanished from the wizarding world, only to reappear in the wilds as creatures with human eyes, intelligent but forever disconnected from their past lives. These lost souls, forgotten by time, serve as a warning to those who would dare to attempt such dangerous magic without proper understanding. The most chilling aspect of these lost animagi is that they are not completely devoid of human traits. They may have the bodies of animals, but their eyes, those human eyes, betray the intelligence and consciousness that once were. These eyes, capable of conveying emotions and thoughts, are the only remnants of their former selves. They are not entirely gone, but they are lost, trapped behind the mask of the animal form. It is this haunting reminder that gives the lost animagus their tragic identity. They are not simply animals, they are ghosts of their human past, forever out of reach. One of the most tragic examples of this possibility can be found in the legend of the animagus who went too far, the story of Lirian, a young student at Hogwarts who was said to be brilliant but reckless in his magical endeavors. Lirian, unlike most students, sought to master animagus transformation before completing his training. Desiring to push the limits of his magic, he attempted the transformation in secret, away from the prying eyes of his professors. He was so eager to prove his worth that he ignored the warnings that had been passed down for generations. He transformed into a magnificent fox, but he lost control and he was never seen again. Some say Lyrian wandered the forests surrounding Hogwarts for years, his once brilliant mind now reduced to that of an animal. Others believe he became one of the many creatures that roam the magical wilds, their minds forever lost to the abyss of their animal forms. Despite the precautions and warnings, some still push the boundaries of animagus magic. The temptation is strong, and the allure of mastering such a powerful skill can cloud the judgment of even the most disciplined wizard. It is easy to become swept up in the promise of freedom, to believe that one can control the transformation at will, but the truth is far more complicated. The magic of animagus transformation is as much a danger as it is a gift. When it goes wrong, the consequences can be devastating. The animagus transformation also carries with it the weight of ancient magic, magic that is not fully understood even by the most seasoned wizards. This ancient magic has a mind of its own, and when pushed too far, it can break free of the control of the witch or wizard performing the transformation. This is why the animagus transformation is often treated with such reverence and caution. It is not just a physical change, it is a merging of the soul and the animal, and this delicate balance can easily be shattered by a single moment of recklessness. The dangers of animagus transformation are not just theoretical, they have been demonstrated in the lives of those who dared to defy the rules. Even within the walls of Hogwarts, there are whispered rumors of former students who were never seen again, their fates sealed by their own failure to respect the magic they sought to master. While many successful Animagi have been celebrated in the wizarding world, such as James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew, their transformations serve as a reminder of the risk they took. James and Sirius, for all their youthful bravado, knew the potential dangers of their magic. They too understood that one wrong move could result in a permanent transformation, one that could never be undone. The idea that there are creatures with human eyes wandering the wilderness is one of the darkest aspects of animagus magic. These creatures are the result of failed transformations, the tragic remnants of wizards who were once something more. To see one of these lost souls is to witness the cost of overreaching, of attempting magic that one cannot control. Their eyes, still filled with the spark of human consciousness, are the last vestiges of their humanity, a reminder of the price they paid for their ambition. For every successful animagus, there are those who paid the ultimate price. There is no easy answer to the question of what happens when an animagus loses control. The consequences are as mysterious as the magic itself, and the stories of those who have been lost to the wilds are a sobering reminder of the dangers inherent in the pursuit of power. While some may see animagus transformation as a symbol of mastery and skill, others know it as a dangerous and unpredictable force that should never be underestimated. The truth about animagus magic is that it is not just about turning into an animal, it is about the cost of tampering with the very essence of one's soul. The risks are real, and for those who lose control, the consequences are far more than they could ever imagine. Number 25. How much does the animal form influence a wizard's destiny? Animagi in the world of Harry Potter are figures surrounded by mystique, power, and a deep connection to their inner selves. Wizards and witches who can transform into animals at will are rare and highly respected, but there's an unsettling question lurking beneath their magical prowess. Does the form they take influence their fate, their identity, or even the way they live their lives? The magical transformation is not just a practical ability, it's a reflection of something far deeper, a philosophical challenge to the very essence of who they are. Take, for instance, the transformation of Peter Pettigrew. Once a member of the Marauders, Pettigrew's animagus form was a rat. This wasn't simply a random choice of animal. The rat is a creature known for its sneakiness, its ability to hide in the shadows, to scurry away from danger, and to survive by betraying those around it. Over time, this rat-like nature became ingrained in Pettigrew's character. The decision to become a rat, in some ways, became a reflection of his true nature. His betrayal of James and Lily Potter, and later his loyalty to Voldemort, were actions that seemed preordained by the very essence of the animal he became. It was not just his animagus form that made him a rat, it was his rat-like qualities, cowardice, selfishness, and a lack of integrity that led him to become one. When he transformed into a rat, it was as though he was being forced to live with his truest nature, one that was less about noble choice and more about survival at the expense of others. In contrast, consider Sirius Black, whose animagus form was a large black dog. A dog, particularly a loyal and fearless one, is a symbol of unwavering friendship and bravery. Sirius, much like the dog he became, was fiercely loyal to his friends and was willing to risk his life for those he loved. His transformation into a dog was not just a magical skill, it mirrored his personality and choices. Even in his time at Hogwarts, Sirius was known for his courage, for being someone who would do anything to protect his friends, and for being a rebellious spirit willing to stand up for what he believed in. The dog, for him, was more than just a form. It was a manifestation of his fierce loyalty, a trait that defined much of his life. Sirius never allowed his animagus form to define his fate in a way that trapped him. He embodied the qualities of his dog form, but he also transcended them, showing that one's animagus form, though revealing, does not have to limit or imprison the soul. Rita Skeeter, the infamous journalist, offers another lens through which to examine this question. Her animagus form was a beetle, an insect whose very nature is invasive, sneaky, and opportunistic. Like a beetle, Rita scurried from story to story, feeding off the secrets and suffering of others. Her transformation into a beetle wasn't just a skill, it was a reflection of her personality. Rita was a master of deception, using her ability to eavesdrop and gather secrets to her advantage. She was a creature that thrived in the shadows, much like the beetle that flits unseen and unnoticed, always searching for the next story to feed on. The beetle was an animal that symbolized the parasitic nature of Rita, his career, constantly seeking out the most personal, the most hidden parts of people's lives to exploit. Her animagus form was not just a magical ability, it was a sentence, a reflection of her true character. Unlike Sirius, who embraced the nobility of his form, Rita found herself trapped within the limitations of her own choices. These examples raise a question that resonates deeply within the world of Harry Potter. Does the form one takes as an animagus reflect a deeper truth about their soul? The answer might lie in the way each character lives their life. Peter Pettigrew, for example, was a rat long before he became one. His animal form merely brought his darker qualities into the open, giving him an excuse to hide and betray. Sirius, on the other hand, was a dog in spirit, always loyal, courageous, and willing to fight for what was right. It is almost as if their animal forms were a reflection of their internal struggles, their strengths and weaknesses, and their choices. The more unsettling question, however, is whether a wizard or witch becomes trapped by their animal form. Can a person's animagus transformation become a self-fulfilling prophecy, a cage that locks them into a role they can never escape? If Peter Pettigrew had been forced to become a rat from the very beginning, would he have been condemned to live a life of treachery and cowardice, forever running from danger and betrayal? Was his form a fate that he could not avoid, a kind of magical prison that mirrored his moral descent? The opposite might be true for Sirius. While his dog form was an expression of his loyalty and bravery, his fate was also shaped by the choices he made. His animagus form didn't trap him, rather it liberated him, allowing him to escape from situations where others would have been confined by their circumstances. His transformation allowed him to move more freely in the world, and perhaps this was a reflection of his inner desire to break free from the constraints placed on him by both society and his family. It's not that he escaped from his animal nature, but rather that he embraced it as part of who he was, integrating it into his character and making it work for him rather than against him. Could this suggest that our animagus form is both a reflection of our nature and a tool that we can either use or be controlled by? The story of Peter Pettigrew and Sirius Black suggests that it is both our animal form reflects who we are, but it also provides us with a magical tool to shape our future. If one is at peace with their form, they can transcend its limitations and use it to their advantage. If one is unwilling to accept it, the form can become a prison that locks them into their past mistakes, just as Pettigrew, rat form, trapped him in a cycle of cowardice and betrayal. But then what of those who are unable to transform? What does it say about them? In the world of Harry Potter, Animagi are rare, and those who lack the ability to transform, like Harry, are not defined by their animal natures. Yet Harry's character is shaped by the choices he makes, much like the Animagi. His courage, loyalty, and willingness to fight for his friends are traits that we might associate with an animal like a lion. Yet Harry does not have the magical ability to transform. Does this make him any less courageous, or does it suggest that the real magic is in the choices we make, rather than the form we take? This is the heart of the matter. While Animagi are deeply connected to their forms, the real power lies in the choices that shape their identities. The form doesn't define the person, rather, it is the person who defines their form. The magical ability to transform into an animal may reflect who someone is, but it doesn't limit who they can become. This is what sets Sirius apart from Pettigrew. Sirius embraced his dog form as part of his identity, but he was never controlled by it. He chose to fight for what was right, to be a hero, and his animal form became a reflection of that choice. Pettigrew, however, was enslaved by his rat form, choosing cowardice and betrayal over loyalty and courage. In the end, it seems that the animagus form is not a sentence, but a reflection of who the wizard or witch truly is. It is a reflection of the choices they have made, the qualities they have embraced, and the paths they have chosen to walk. It is a lens through which we can examine the complexities of their character. And perhaps the most important question of all is whether they can ever escape the limitations of that form. Can a rat ever become a lion? Or is the form we take simply a mirror, showing us who we are meant to be all along?